What's up, guys? Zim Rakes here, and today I'm going to go over my bracket. I'm going to discuss a couple of games that I really liked to break down, a couple games that wanted me to, or almost made me pull my hair out. Um, it's an interesting field, and it's an interesting bracket. I've worked on this for about 50 hours or so over the past 3 or 4 days. It's been a crazy ride, honestly, and I'm going to be real with y'all. Big 12. Yeah, I can cap that. I can tell you how that's gonna go. I'm gonna tell you how the Big 12 works. But as far as the other conferences go, I'm not that strong in. And so a lot of my research actually dove into listening to a lot of other people, such as Jeff Nadu and Greg Peterson and Avery Johnson, Andy Katz, a lot of people that I just listened to for hours and hours and hours breaking down these games before I even sat down to make my own picks. And I've done a lot of line predictions as well. Created this system that is 80% accurate in the sense that, like, whenever Vegas says it's a line or this is the line, it predicts the line 80% accurately within half a point. Of course, there's a little error margin there. But 20% of the games that it doesn't predict or that the lines are off for, those are the ones we're going to be, looking at betting. But the other ones, the 80%, I mean, they gave me good vision as to who should win a game, who shouldn't win a game, things of that nature. So I've kind of done the whole 9 yards as far as looking at lines, line movements, money coming in, bets coming in, listening to some of these guys who know beyond way more than I do, and listening to their analysis and their breakdowns of these games. So I'm pretty confident in my bracket. I think I've put in the work to be confident in it, and we're gonna see how it works out. Can't wait for it. I think it's gonna fare pretty well, but we're gonna jump in to the bracket, and let me see how I can share this real quick. 1 second, let's figure this out. Technical difficulties, apparently. Here we are. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and break this game or break this bracket down, right? Um, so let's get started with the West region, of course. Um, Great region. I think it's a very easy region. We see Gonzaga being the favorite, the number one overall seed. This, for the most part, is a very simple, easy region as to figure out who's going to the Final Four. And I'll tell you right now, that's Gonzaga. The 2, 3, and 4 seeds, Gonzaga's played already and destroyed them. So there's no reason for us to believe that anything will happen, anything different will happen this time around. I put Gonzaga all the way through the Final Four, that nothing's going to change. Fun fact with Gonzaga and a lot of these other favorites, if you're a favorite of minus 10 or more points, you win 90% of the games. That being said, whoever wins Norfolk, Appalachian State, uh, Gonzaga is going to be a 26-point favorite. That's what my predictions say. Then they go on to play OU. They're gonna, or well, what I have right now, OU or Missouri. That's one of those difficult games, and I'll get into that in a second. But I have OU. I clearly just said that. Whenever they go on to play them, they'll be a minus 10-point favorite. That's what my predictions say, at least. Again, in the Sweet 16, they'll be a minus 10-point favorite at least. Um, it's not until the Elite Eight that they don't see a minus 10-point favorite. And so I'm going to move them on all the way to the Final Four. I mean, that's just a given. Number one overall seed. This is their year, undefeated. They have the confidence. They have the momentum. They're going to move on all the way to the Final Four. I'm going to go ahead and just put that out there right now. Oklahoma, Missouri. Now, this game is one of those games that nearly made me pull my hair out. I could not break this down for the longest of times to save my life. Um, I ended up going with OU here. Um, I can understand if you take Missouri. I definitely could. Um, Nothing wrong with that. Frankly, this is one of those games that I may even switch last minute back to Missouri. I'm waiting on more information to come out, see more line movement, see more bet percentages, things of that nature to sort of help me with this. But I mean, when you look at everybody and what they're taking, a lot of people are taking OU. But when you focus a little bit more on analyst and see what they're taking, they're really split between this game. They're OU, half of them are Missouri. And for me, before I even broke down this game, I was leaning OU. You know, not the best team, but of course, I think that they're somebody to reason with. They come out of the Big 12, which is a very competitive it's very competitive conference, and I think they'll just be a little bit more comfortable playing in this environment in a tournament do or die situation. A little bit more than Missouri, and then Missouri always also has a little bit of a lackluster program right now. They've been on a downswing, as has OU. But I expect OU to turn it around more than I expect Missouri to turn around. I think they turn around, get it done, they move on. But of course, as we already have, I got Gonzaga beating OU, so it doesn't really even matter. This is just a one and done game for either one of them. Creighton, UCSB. Now Creighton's been on downswing. Um, they haven't performed nearly to the level people thought they would. They still get a 5 seed. This is what I like about UCSB. And from my tone, you can probably already assume which way I'm going. Um, sorry, guys. You know, UCSB. I mean, if Creighton, this is the thing with this. Creighton should win this game. Creighton is, I think, a -5 point favorite. Creighton should win this game. Um, but the fact of the matter is, if Creighton slumps even for a minute or two, UCSB is one of those programs that will take advantage of that. They'll go out, they'll get the lead, and then they'll maintain that lead. And do I expect Creighton to play a perfect game? I don't. I simply don't. So UCSB for me is the program that can actually beat Creighton just because if Creighton does slump, UCSB will take advantage of it. And for that purpose, I don't expect Creighton to um, play a perfect game, and for that purpose, I'm taking UCSB. It's my first 5-12 upset. Do I have another? It doesn't seem like it. So this is the 5-12 upset that I'm going with. Virginia, Ohio. Um, well, first off, I've heard a lot of Ohio is going to upset Virginia. Stop it. Stop it. That's not happening. 413 upset happens 21% of the time in these tournaments. That's 1 in 5 times approximately. And I'll tell you right now, none of those 5 times, the 4 times it doesn't happen, that's this tournament. There's not going to be a 413 upset. Just not going to happen. Quit thinking about it. Quit worrying about it. Virginia is not getting upset by Ohio. I don't have to talk more on it. I'm telling you, Virginia is a good team. Ohio, great also, but come on, Virginia's been here before. They've done it before. They understand how to handle the competition. Give me Virginia in that spot. Don't don't stop with Ohio. USC, Wichita State, and Drake. Um, Wichita State and Drake are fairly good teams, but USC I am big on. They're a very good program. They're underrated. They have NBA talent on their roster. Um, it doesn't really matter who's going to win that 11 matchup in that play-in matchup. USC is going to demolish either one of them. I'm taking USC. Kansas, EWU. Another game I'm hearing a ton about upsets. Eastern Washington is not going to upset Kansas. It's just not going to happen. Stop worrying about it. This is an easy pick for us. Kansas, I know they have COVID issues, but if it was major, we'd have heard about it if it was a specific player that we really needed. And even, honestly, Kansas has depth. They have depth. Regardless of even if a player or two are out, Kansas still has the depth to beat Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington is not going to keep up. We're not going to see COVID being an issue for them in the first round. Kansas is moving on. That's a done deal. Oregon, VCU. This is a game I beat myself up about a little bit. Not too much, not nothing to where I was pulling my hair out. But I ultimately went with Oregon. I think VCU plays well. I think Oregon just plays a little bit better. This is one of those matchups where I can definitely see myself being wrong, just like Oklahoma, Missouri. But in this spot, if I'm having a lean aside in the beginning before the tournament starts, I'm going to take Oregon. Just playing a little bit better, and a couple of upsets and stuff like that for them early on or a bit prior to the season or prior to this tournament. I think that might light a fire under them. So we're gonna go ahead and take Oregon there, and then I don't have to say much about this 215. Again, there's not gonna be a 215, 314, uh, or yeah, 314, 413 upset in this tournament. I know a lot of people want them. A lot of people are rooting for madness. It's just not going to happen. It happens very rarely. A two seed's only been upset 8 times in the tournament. It's not going to happen. Iowa moves on to face Oregon. Going back to the top, of course, we already have our pick in there for Gonzaga. Oklahoma's not going to keep up with Gonzaga. Another minus 10-point favorite for Gonzaga. I'm taking the Zags to beat OU. UCSB, Virginia. This is unfortunately the point where UCSB's Cinderella run comes to an end. Virginia is a pretty good team. Can't undermine them. And UCSB, as great of a team they are, and again, the reason I picked them against Creighton was because if Creighton has a minute or two of where they're not playing well, then UCSB would take the advantage. I don't see the same thing with Virginia. For one, I think Virginia might be able to play a more perfect game than Creighton. But more importantly, I feel that even if they did mess up for a couple minutes, they'd be a team that would be willing to, or that'd be able to come back against UCSB. So I'm going on and moving Virginia to the next round. USC, Kansas. Now, this is a point where you talk about COVID issues. You talk about the potential losses or potential loss you might have in a player or two with COVID, or even the fact that you don't get to practice prior to the game because of COVID, or for this past week, you haven't been able to practice. This is a point where I'm going to take USC and their talent roster to the next round. This is where you're going to see COVID affect Kansas. And it's an unfortunate thing because I really was hoping that Kansas could make a run for it. But unfortunately, with the COVID situation, with them, being not having been able to practice for a week, and this, this is just going to be a bummer for them. USC goes on and wins it. Oregon, Iowa. I'm hearing a lot of upsets with Iowa being upset by Oregon. I'm not a believer. I'm going to put that out there. I'm not a believer. Iowa is the second best team in this bracket, or in this at least region. Of course, that's why the number 2 seed. But I think when I say they're the second best team, I think they're the only team that can really give Gonzaga a fight. Obviously, do I think they do? No, because I already put Gonzaga in the Final Four. But do I think they could? Yes. But the rest of the teams know. Iowa is somebody to be messed with. Luka Garza, NBA talent there as well. You're not. Oregon's not upsetting Iowa. I'm sorry. Neither is USC. Sorry, it's just not happening. As much as I like the USC talented roster, I think Iowa is just more of a dominant force against them. I think they control the paint a little bit better, get up and down the court a little bit better, make less turnovers, less mistakes. I'm taking Iowa to the Elite Eight. Gonzaga, Virginia. Again, already taking Gonzaga, another 10-point favorite here by my calculations or predictions, whatever you want to call them. Another 10-point favorite, Gonzaga. Virginia is a good team. They're a good team. But we've seen what Gonzaga did to them already this season. Nothing's going to change. This is going to be a same story. And for that purpose, same story again, I'm taking Gonzaga past Iowa to the Final Four. This is a very easy region, in my opinion. It was very easy to figure out, except for OU and Missouri. And that was probably the most difficult game for me to figure out. But beyond that, everything was sort of, like a puzzle. But we're going to go down to the East region now. And within this East region, let's take a look at let's start off with Michigan. Guys, one time in the history of this tournament has the first 1 seed been upset by a 16 seed. This is a no-brainer. If you're going anywhere other than Michigan, don't make a bracket. Save yourself some money from the bracket pool. Don't do it. Trust me. You got to take Michigan there. There's no question asked about it. LSU, St. Bonaventure. This is a game that had me beat for a while. And ultimately, I took LSU. And I know y'all probably thinking I'm only taking chalk. Let me explain this pick. LSU, St. Bonaventure, right? great teams actually, and it kind of sucks that they're getting pitted against each other because I was really hoping that they could potentially make separate runs, but unfortunately, only one of them can make a run if they make a run. Um, for me, I think the more likely of the two is LSU, and I think they're the slightly better team simply for the fact that Bonaventure really only had. I mean, they don't have depth. LSU has depth. Bonaventure doesn't really have depth. They have 5, 6 guys that they play for the majority of the game, and if one of them gets into foul trouble, what happens in that situation? And I got to think in terms of that, right? Because I mean, if you're looking at the bracket, if you're looking at the fact that it's a tournament, the rest might be more willing to call some fouls that they wouldn't have called in the regular season. And for that purpose, Bonaventure kind might be able to get into foul trouble very, very early on. And what happens in that point? Well, LSU has the depth to handle if they get into foul trouble, but Bonaventure does not. On top of that, LSU runs up and down the court. What happens when Bonaventure gets exhausted, if they get exhausted? All these issues pertaining to this game and Bonaventure's depth, I think LSU is the team that's going to advance. I think they're going to take advantage of Bonaventure on that end, just running up and down the court. And if they get into foul trouble, even better, right? So I'm going to advance LSU. Colorado, Georgetown. As I said earlier, I don't have another 5-12 upset, so I'm going to go ahead and just put Colorado there. But yes, Georgetown is very live in this game. They are very capable of beating Colorado. I can see it happening. And if there's a game I'm wrong about in this region, it's probably or in the first round of this region, it's probably that one. I think I'm more right about the LSU game than I am about the Colorado Georgetown game. I'll give you that. I very slightly lean towards Colorado. Uh, my concern with Georgetown is that they had this whole momentum. They played really well. They're coming into this tournament full of momentum, full of life. But what happens when you have to wait a week for the tournament to start? you know. And I think a lot of people are looking at this as the 12-5 upset simply because Georgetown has been on an upswing. But again, what happens to that momentum, especially when you're not one to be able to, or not one that's familiar with momentum, right? If you're familiar with momentum, you might have a better understanding on how to maintain that energy in the locker room. But if this is a new feeling for y'all, and it is for Georgetown, how do you maintain that feeling? Um, and frankly, I don't think they know how to. And for that purpose, I do think this is going to be a bad game on their end, but I could be wrong. The momentum could just swing over right into the tournament, and I could be entirely wrong. If I'm wrong about that, then Georgetown might just get to the Sweet 16. But if I'm right about that, then Colorado's moving on, and I like to think I'm right, so I'm gonna go with Colorado. Again, we're coming down to FSU UNC Greensboro. Guys, not a 4-13, not no 4-13 upset. Stop it. FSU is moving on. Um, UNC Greensboro plays well, but FSU's average height is 6'6". You're not matching up with those guys. Stop it. Moving on, FSU. BYU, Michigan State, UCLA. So first off, we're going to have to talk about the play-in game. I think Michigan State they play some of their best basketball in March. Tom Izzo, Michigan State, they're just great when it comes down to March. And, that being said, I think Michigan State is the team that's going to beat UCLA. But there's a good chance UCLA wins that game. Either way, I don't like BYU to advance. I'm taking this as an upset. Michigan State, I think, is going to be the team. Even if it's UCLA, I'm still taking them over BYU. I think BYU is perfectly seated at the 6th seed. Nothing wrong against that. But I do think that I think they're one of the worst 6 seeds. And I think Michigan State, UCLA are both being underrated right now. I think both of them are very live. They have good coaches, good rosters. Michigan State, again, plays one of their best with some of their best basketball when it comes to March. I think they're going to beat UCLA, and I think they're going to go on to beat BYU. Texas, Abilene Christian. You see that, guys? You see that? I hope y'all see that. Okay. That's all I'm going to do about that. UConn, Maryland. I do want to mention for the Texas game that I am not just doing that because I'm a fan. I truly think they'll win. UConn, Maryland. We're going to go with UConn. This is a game that kind of beat me up a little bit, but I ultimately chose UConn in this situation. I think they are the better team. I think Maryland might put up a slight fight. Some people don't even believe Maryland deserves to be in this tournament. So that's a very interesting take. As far as I see it, I think UConn is the better team. I think they play really well. Um, they're collective as a unit, or they play collectively as a unit. I'm going to sit here and take UConn. And again, if you're looking at Iona, stop. They're a great media team. Um, they're getting a lot of media attention, coverage, whatever. Keep it at that. Don't put them on to the next round of your bracket. It's just not happening. Take Bama. Michigan, LSU. Guys, this one was a little difficult to cap because I really wanted to pull the upset off with LSU. I think they were very capable with Austin Livers out, Livers out. He's, I really wanted to take the upset there with LSU. I just don't think that Michigan falls that early, and this is my reasoning because of their 1-16 matchup. And you're like, why does that matter? Well, they're not really focusing on either one of those games. They're not. Whoever wins, Texas Southern, Mount St. Mary's, doesn't matter. They're not focusing on them. They're going to beat them. They're more concerned about their next round, playing either St. Bonaventure and LSU. And I think the fact of the matter comes down to they're preparing for those two guys already, whereas LSU is probably preparing for the Bonnies, and Bonnies are preparing for LSU. And then, they go on and have to play Michigan the next day or 2 days from the day after. Whereas Michigan's been preparing for them this whole time. For that purpose, I'm going to move on Michigan. But if LSU upsets them, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Livers is a big miss for them, and it's going to hurt them eventually down the line. Does it happen against LSU? Probably. Will they feel him being? Will they miss him? Definitely. Can LSU pull it off, or do I think they'll pull it off? No, only because of the practice situation where Michigan is probably already looking ahead and practicing for LSU or St. Bonaventure, while the other two, St. Bonaventure, LSU, are definitely not practicing for Michigan. Colorado, FSU. Colorado, like I said, they can get upset against Georgetown, and the important part about to understand from that is that if Georgetown is the team that ends up going there, of course, we're thinking about bracket and are trying to have a successful bracket. I know a lot of guys like to see compare each game and like just take whoever they like and then not really look at the bracket holistically. But you have to do that if you're going to be in a bracket challenge and whatnot. And in the situation that Georgetown upsets Colorado, well, FSU is going to beat Georgetown. In the situation Colorado beats Georgetown, I think the game's, of course, a lot closer, but I still think FSU ultimately has the edge. They just have too much height. Their average height of their starting five is 6'6". Ultimately, I think they have too much height. Either way, I have FSU going, whether they're playing Colorado or Georgetown, but I do think Colorado might put up a challenge if they're the ones to get through. Again, I said earlier that if Georgetown upsets Colorado and carries that momentum, they can also go to the Sweet 16, and that's also live. But either way, if FSU is playing either one of these teams, I have FSU as my favorite in that game. Michigan State, UCLA, Texas. Again, just take a look at that shirt real quick. Yeah, okay. Great run for the Spartans to get to the second round, but at the end of the day, Michigan State's story is going to come to an end. Texas has too many guards. They average together collectively per person 14 points a game. The guard play there is just going to be phenomenal. They have guys down in the paint. You're not stopping them. I'm sorry. As much as I'd love to see Michigan State go on, I think I've watched every Michigan State for the last 3 years in March. And, as much as I'd love for them to move on, it's just not going to happen in this matchup. I think Texas takes it. And UConn, Bama, UConn's a great team, but more or less, again, I think their run comes to an end too. It would have been nice to see him facing off against someone else, but in this situation, I am taking Bama. They also have too much height. I'm gonna pound it down low. Give me Bama. Michigan, FSU. Another spot that I can see Michigan falling, and a lot of my colleagues, a lot of people that I've worked with and that I've been talking this bracket challenge over with and trying to understand the best plays and things of that nature, a lot of them are picking FSU to upset Michigan. And you know what? it's a valid upset. I think it's very likely. I think it's very possible. They both have a week to prepare, but I do think ultimately Michigan will pull through. I project them as a -6.5 favorite, and that's quite a bit of points to be saying that Michigan's going to win by. Of course, if you don't know what a spread means, it means the more times than not the team's going to win by exactly that amount of points. Of course, 6.5 is impossible to win by, but that essentially just means they're either winning by 6 or 7 majority of the time. And in this situation, I don't see much different. I think FSU might be able to top them or beat them up in the game, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to go with Michigan. A lot of chalk here, but this is where I don't have chalk. I'm going to take Texas, and not as a fan. I'm going to take Texas simply because of their guard play. Bama has height. Bama's going to pound it down low, but I think Texas can manage that. They have big guys of their own. The guard play at Texas, though, is unmatched. Um, wow, my voice is off today. The guard play at Texas is just unmatched. I think that the guards ultimately are going to be the deciding factor for Bama or this game. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, like if you have one guard, then you might be able to say, hey, well, what about if he does bad? But Texas has three guards. One of them does bad. Two of them still going to do well. Um, Texas beats Bama, moves on, and more or less the same story. And this is where Michigan, and again, even if you advance Bama into this round, this is important. Whoever advances between Bama and Texas to play Michigan is going to beat Michigan. That is the point where Michigan realizes, or if it's FSU even, Michigan's gonna realize that they don't have livers. And FSU, if you advance FSU even between the FSU Michigan matchup, the fact of the matter is FSU doesn't have a true point guard. They don't have a true point guard. Both Michigan and FSU are not full teams anymore. Michigan used to be, but they're not anymore. FSU has never been a full team, or this season at least. That being said, whoever wins the bottom of this bracket, whether it's Texas or Bama, whoever you have, unless it's like UConn, Michigan State, if it's Texas or Bama, that's the team that's going to the Final Four. I'm telling you that right now. And in this situation, I have Texas beating Bama. I like the guard play, and I have them beating Michigan. But yeah, again, whoever you have, Texas or Bama, um, that's who's going to the Final Four. Now we're back to the top of the South region. Baylor, Hartford, guys. Again, 1-16. Don't make that mistake. Only one 16 seed has ever upset a first seed, and that's not going to happen again in this tournament. UNC, Wisconsin. This was a game that was difficult to break down for a little bit. Then I heard a couple of people talking about how Wisconsin didn't even deserve to be in here, and I thought about it a little bit more and more and more, and eventually, ultimately, decided I'm going to take UNC. I think, frankly, this game doesn't matter. Frankly, this game doesn't matter. Now, I will say this: um, I have 3 8 seeds already moving on to the second round. Fun fact: 51% of 9 seeds win. That means essentially 9 seeds are the favorite, right? They're essentially the 8 seeds. 51% of the time in the first round, the 9 seed beats the 8 seed, and I already have 3 moving on. Concerning, sure, but I don't think this Wisconsin UNC game is one where there will be an upset. I think Bonaventure LSU could be an upset, and I think OU and Missouri can be an upset. I don't think North Carolina, Wisconsin's an upset. North Carolina has been to the dance multiple times. They know what they're doing. They've been at the big stage. The confidence is probably high. The veteranship of the coaching staff there is probably going to be important in this game. I'm taking UNC. Nova, Winthrop. Again, with these absurd picks, right? Upset picks. Winthrop's not winning. Winthrop's not winning. I projected this line at -10. And if you've noticed what the line is, it's -6, -5.5, -6.5, within that range. One of those three. It's a little short of where I've personally put it at. And I know Gillespie's out, but that doesn't change the fact that Nova still has depth. I mean, Nova's depth is Winthrop starter. Don't tell me Winthrop's gonna upset Nova's moving on. Sorry to tell you that. If you big on this upset, stay off of it. Only reason I even think the line's -5.5, -6, -6.5 for Nova is simply because the media is over covering this, issue with Gillespie being out, and they're giving Winthrop all this unnecessary, unneeded attention that these bookmakers have no choice but to play towards the public, and the public is on Winthrop. Play towards the public and move the line down exceedingly. No, guys, Nova's winning by 10, maybe more. Give me Nova. Purdue, North Texas. No 4-13 upsets. There's not going to be one. Purdue moves on. Purdue, fun fact for those people who don't realize this, they're playing in essentially their home state. They've played at both a bunch of these stadiums before, right? Lucas Oil Field. Um, they're turning it into basketball court. This is a place that people, teams specifically, will go in, and there'll be a different atmosphere to it, a different feel to it, because it's not a basketball stadium, and they might fault a little bit. But Purdue's played in that stadium, and this is Purdue's home state. Like they're gonna do well. I'm taking Purdue over Nova. Oh well, I already gave out a pick early. Oops. But yeah, I'm taking Purdue over UNT. Texas Tech, Utah State. This is a game where I can see Utah State upsetting Texas Tech. I can entirely see that. But I'm going to lay the chalk here. Texas Tech coming out of Big 12, knowing how to handle these situations, playing fierce competition in the Big 12. I mean, you have teams like Oklahoma State, Texas, Baylor. I mean, first off, we're going to get into Oklahoma State later, and why the hell are they a 4 seed? I can't tell you. Makes zero sense to me why they're a 4 seed and West Virginia is a 3 seed. Kansas is a 3 seed. It makes zero sense to me. OK State truly got screwed over here, but we're gonna get into that later. But Texas Tech, playing against such fierce competition, I expect them to beat Utah State. I don't think they're gonna end their run early. Could I see Utah State beating them? Sure. And if somebody were to sit me down and say, "Hey, Zim, you need to take a look at this game again," I might do it. I might do it. Um, but for now, I got Texas Tech. Arkansas, Colgate. A lot of people are picking Colgate. Stop with these 3-14 upsets. It's not happening. You might want to take Colgate on the spread. Sure, do that. Will this be a close game? I believe so. Ultimately, who I think will win? Arkansas. Easy. Quit telling me Colgate's going to win. Florida, Va-Tech. First off, I'm going to say this. Florida might be the worst 7 seed, and Va-Tech might be the best 10 seed. This is more of an 8-9 matchup, and as I said, 9 seeds usually beat 8 seeds. And in this situation, I'm doing no different. I'm taking Va-Tech over Florida. I think Florida is a great team. I think Va-Tech's just going to be a little bit too much for them to handle, a little bit too much for their plates. I think they're going to pound them in, and they're going to get the points. They're going to get the buckets up. Taking Va-Tech over Florida. One of my 10-7 upsets. I have a second one, which I don't even think it's an upset, but I have a second one. OSU or Roberts. Stop. Don't tell me or I'm going to go with Baylor. What just happened on my screen? Something happened. Okay. Baylor UNC. I'm going to go with Baylor. UNC plays a great game. They have a good program, veteranship. But at the end of the day, you can't deny what Baylor is, and they're a true powerhouse. They do well, and the second round is not where they're going to go out, I don't believe. I think they very minimally make it to the Sweet 16, and that's when you really see upset potential for Baylor, and we'll get into that in a sec. Again, Nova, Purdue, I gave out the pick already. Purdue, I think this is where Nova truly feels for Gillespie being out and the injuries that they face. And I'm moving on Purdue for that purpose. Texas Tech, Arkansas. This is a game that I beat myself up about. Not too much, not a lot, but I did take Texas Tech initially, and later on only did I move my pick to Arkansas. And I think it's. I mean, I think Arkansas is going to go out there, put up a ton of points, and you're asking Texas Tech to keep up with them, and I don't quite think that they'll be able to do so. At first, I thought so, but Heinz, I went back to my bracket. And this is like my final bracket is like my seventh or eighth draft of a bracket. I went through too many of these, and ultimately, I've decided Arkansas is the play here. I'm going with Arkansas. Uh, Va-Tech, Ohio State. Um, again, Vatek's run comes to an end as much as I feel for that. But unfortunately, as much as I'm rooting for him, because I actually like Vatek, but Ohio State's going to end up just dominating them in all ways necessary. Um, they're going to play really well against them, and at the end of the day, I'm taking Ohio State to move on. And sure, they're gonna have some troubles with injuries, but at the end of the day, I'm taking. Sorry, I have to type something out real quick. Sorry, guys. Um, I'm taking yeah, Ohio State, and then moving on to Baylor Purdue. Right. So this is the point at which you see potential upset for Baylor, right? Purdue, this is their home state. This is where um, basically this is where they'll be able to make noise, and I think Purdue might just do that against Baylor. But ultimately, and of course, we know Baylor to be a bunch of choke artists. We've seen it one too many times where they have all this limelight on them, and somehow they screw it up. And so, at the end of the day, I'm taking Baylor. Sorry, guys, I should not be doing this, but something important just came up. Give me 1 second. Okay, my bad, guys. Yeah, let me come back to this. Baylor, Purdue. Ultimately, I'm taking Baylor here. I do think Purdue has a lot of upset value here. I think they can definitely cause a lot of make a lot of noise in this situation. This is their home state. This is where it matters. And again, they've played in these arenas before, while Baylor hasn't. And I think if Baylor slows down a little bit, Purdue might be able to get the edge on them. But ultimately, I am going to take Baylor against Purdue. I can give you my predicted line for that as well. And my predicted line for that is -5. So it's not like a huge favorite. I mean, this is very capable. This Purdue team in this spot is very capable to upset. So if you were to tell me to sit down and tell me why Purdue's going to upset there, I'd listen. I truly would. But I am going to ultimately take Baylor. I just think that this is not the position that they get choked, that they choke in. Um, Honestly, this Sweet 16 matchup in the South region is the best, with like Baylor and Purdue, and then also Arkansas, Ohio State. I mean, the other Sweet 16 matchups nice, but Baylor, Purdue, Arkansas, Ohio State. These are the two best Sweet 16 matchups. And we're going to dive into the second one. Now, here at Arkansas, Ohio State, I think Arkansas is a very prominent team. I think they can make Ohio State pay. My more pressing concern is Kyle Young with Ohio State. If you know, he's out with injuries, concussion. And the concern for me is, that the Sweet 16. I mean, he got this concussion, I believe, like a week ago or something. And I don't know if the Sweet 16, that's 2 weeks from when he got it, is enough time for him to come back from concussion protocol, because it's pretty bad. I mean, this is the second one he's, I think, received in the past 2 months or something like that. When that happens, the second one usually lasts quite a while. And so my concern is Kyle Young's not going to be back for Ohio State. And in that sense, I mean, I'm going to I would assume Arkansas could take advantage of that and beat them. And now, even if Kyle Young is back for Ohio State, I still like my odds here. Ohio State would only be a 3-point favorite to Arkansas, and even then, Arkansas is a team that runs up and down the court. They make opportunities for themselves, especially on the fast break. I think this is an Arkansas team that needs to be reckoned with. I think they go on to play Baylor, and now we're going to get into the choke job that Baylor is. Baylor can't handle the limelight. They just can't. Do y'all know what Waco is? That's where they're from. That's where they're from. Do y'all know what that is? It's a city in the middle of nowhere. They're quiet people. They can't handle the limelight. They get flustered in the limelight, and you're putting them in the Elite Eight, even in the Sweet 16. You can see an upset happening. You're putting them in the limelight and saying this is Baylor. They should win it all. They should do all this. They're not going to. They're going to get flustered. They're going to get nervous and scared, and they're going to drop the ball on this one. And I'm going to take Arkansas. I mean, that's just how it is. It's always been a that's always been Baylor's MO. They always screw it up at the end, and this time is going to be no different. Give me Arkansas in the spot for the Final Four. Um, moving down to the Midwest bracket, Illinois Drexel guys, 1 to 16. We're going with the one. Loyola Chicago, Georgia Tech. Now I said earlier that 9 seeds win the 51% of the time, and I also said that I have 3 8 seeds already advancing. Theoretically, I should have 2 8 9 seeds advancing, and I should, you know, in essence, I have none right now. I have 3 8 seeds, so that would mean that I should advance Georgia Tech. But nope, I'm not doing that. Going Loyola Chicago, I'm going all 8 seeds this tournament. Um, gonna be nerve wracking to watch these 8 seeds get upset, but I'm going with Loyola Chicago. They're high on the KenPom rankings, and you wouldn't expect that from an 8 seed. Um, much better than they seem, and I think they're going to be waiting. They're going to be wanting that potential in-state matchup against Illinois, and I think they're going to be working a little hard for it. I think they're the better team as well, so I'm going to go ahead and advance Loyola Chicago in the next round. Tennessee, Oregon State, guys. I know a lot of y'all are going with Oregon State in the spot because y'all enjoy the Cinderella story they were in the tournament prior to the March Madness. Hey, I was rooting for him. Guy made $21,000 off of a $21 bet because of Oregon State. I love it. I love it. That's the thing you want to see. But at the end of the day, you can't deny Tennessee's defense and their ability to lock people up and make problems for other teams. And Oregon State, I think, unfortunately, they just don't perform to the level that you have to beat a team like Tennessee. So unfortunately, I'm advancing Tennessee. And for this game, all I have to say is Cade Cunningham. For OK State Liberty, all I have to say is Cade Cunningham. We're moving on Oklahoma State to the next round. There's not much more beyond that. I mean, Liberty, I know a lot of people are picking them as a favorite or as a upset over OK State. It's not happening. Cade Cunningham just a brutal loss in the Big 12 championship. Glad that happened because, Texas, hook them. But at the end of the day, it's still Cade Cunningham, and he's probably gonna have a chip on his shoulder if anything. Coming that close to getting a title and then falling short. I expect him to do things in this tournament that I, I'm looking forward to watching him play. I'm gonna put OK State in the next round. SDSU Syracuse. This is a matchup a lot of people have like Syracuse in, but I am not one of those people. I like San Diego State right here. I think they do really well in this tournament. Potentially getting to the Elite Eight, but I do have them beating Q's, and there's just I don't think Syracuse can keep up with SDSU as much as it'd be interesting if they did, or even if they upset them. I don't think they're going to do either. I think SDSU wins in a blowout. West Virginia Moorhead. Guys, this is a 3 to 14. Don't ask me more about it. This is just a 3 seed beating a 4 seed, just like every 14 seed, just like every other time that we've seen this happen. Clemson Rutgers. This is my next 10 to 7 upset, but it's not an upset, and I'll tell you why. Because these guys come in and they rank these teams, they seed these teams, so whatever. So fact of the matter is, you really want to look at who's a favorite, you go look at the line. And Rutgers is the favorite. They're a -1.5 favorite right now. They start off at -1. They got moved up to -1.5. They're going to continue to get moved up probably to -2, 2.5. Rutgers is the better team here. Everybody realizes it. So I'm taking the 10 over the 7, but it's not really an underdog pick because Clemson is not an underdog here. Rutgers is not an underdog here. Clemson is. And I am taking the chalk on that, even though I'm taking the 10 seed over the 7 seed. Rutgers is my 10 to 7, another 10 to 7 upset for me, taking Rutgers. Don't make me talk about Houston and Cleveland State. Like, come on, guys. Houston is moving on. Illinois, Loyola, Chicago. This will be a very interesting matchup. Like I said, Loyola Chicago is ranked pretty high on the KenPom rankings, especially on the adjusted EM. Frankly, I think Loyola Chicago will put up a great, great, great fight. At the end of the day, I think Illinois moves on. I think they're a very fascinating team. I like Kofi Cockburn. I think he's going to make a lot of problems for a lot of people. And for that purpose, I'm moving on to Illinois. Now, this is where I really hate um, the fact that OK State is a 4 seed. Annoys the hell out of me because I really would have liked to see them in Elite Eight. And I obviously, from what I'm saying right now, you probably realize I'm not taking them further than the Sweet 16 if I'm even taking them past the second round. But this is where I hate OK State being a 4 seed because now they have to go if they move on. You know what, I'm gonna quit beating around the bush. I am moving them on. Cade Cunningham's not getting stopped. Tennessee, great defense, but I think Cade Cunningham pulls through the guard play at OK State. It's too much for Tennessee with Cade Cunningham. I'm taking OK State, but it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to talk about this game first because I'm reminded every time I put OK State right next to Illinois, I'm reminded of the whack job that this committee did placing OK State as a 4 seed, but West Virginia and Kansas as a 3 seed. I mean, Texas as a 3 seed. I mean, Texas deserves to be a 3 seed, but OK State literally matched up with Texas in the Big 12 championship. How do you not put them as a 3 seed? And that's what makes me so mad because if we're taking West Virginia and we're moving them up and we're moving OK State down where West Virginia is, I could potentially see OK State going down to the Elite Eight, and I can also see. I mean, I would probably see West Virginia, go out in the second round. I see Tennessee potentially make it into Sweet 16. But I mean, you're telling me OK State's a 4 seed. This is what really annoys me. Because now, unfortunately, they play a great Illinois team with Kofi Coburn, and I think Cade Cunningham is going to put his all out on the floor, but it's just not going to be enough for a well-rounded Illinois team. Now, with that rant being done, we're going to move back on track to SDSU West Virginia. Um, SDSU, great team. West Virginia, great team. For me, I think West Virginia is not going to perform to the level people expect them to. And SDSU, I mean, they are really great at a lot of things that people are undermining. They can get the ball up and down the court quick. I mean, they slow it down fairly well. And in their slow play, they beat people in, and they take advantage of opportunities that most people might not be able to find. In game, get the right cuts, get the right ball movement. I think SDSU moves on there. Rutgers, Houston. As much as I loved Rutgers in the first round, I'm not loving them anymore. Houston's moving on. Houston again, Illinois, OK State. We've already talked about it. Kofi Coburn, Cade Cunningham's going to put his all out on the floor, but Illinois' well-rounded team surrounding Kofi Coburn is just a little bit much for OK State. SDSU, Houston. Gonna take the chalk here, guys. SDSU's beautiful run comes to an end. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that. SDSU plays their heart out, but Houston is just a little too big, a little too powerful for them, and I think Houston moves on. However, they're not just a little too big, a little powerful for Illinois. I'm moving on Illinois to the Final Four. I think Kofi Coburn is going to be the guy to watch in this tournament. I think he is going to go off. I think he's going to kill it. And the well-rounded team that is Illinois, it's only better for them that they have this guy in Kofi Coburn. This is interesting, right? So we have 1-3, 1-3 matchup. This is the Final Four: Gonzaga, Texas, Arkansas, Illinois. Texas, of course, I have to take them, right? I mean, that's my team. But I still can't deny the fact that it is the powerhouse in Gonzaga. I mean, Gonzaga is, I project this line to be minus 11.5. And what was I saying earlier about these minus 10-point favorites? They only lose 10% of the time. Do I think that 10% falls into this situation? I think it can, and you best believe I'm going to be rooting that it does. But I truly think Gonzaga, I mean, beats Texas, and I hope the Texas men's basketball team proves me wrong. I pray that they do. This is a win-win situation for me, right? If I'm right and Texas loses, I'm right. And if I'm wrong and Texas wins, then I'm a winner. It's a win-win situation for me. I don't really care too much about it. I really do hope, though, Texas proves me wrong. But I can't deny the powerhouse that is Gonzaga. I mean, undefeated with the momentum going forward in this tournament. First team since 76, potentially the first team since 76, to go undefeated and get to the finals. right? They're gonna have that momentum. They're gonna have that hype. They're gonna do well with it. They've been here before. They've done this before. They know how to manage it. Gonzaga moving on versus Texas, Arkansas, Illinois. So we hardly ever see a one-on-one matchup. We like it hardly ever happens. I think it's happened 8 times. Um, yeah, it's gonna happen again, in my opinion. Arkansas, a great team. They run it up and down the court, but I think Kofi Cockburn again comes down to Kofi Cockburn. A little bit too much to manage. He's a little bit too. He's a mouthful for Arkansas. He's not. He's not going to let them. They're going to take a bigger bite than they expected, and they're not going to be able to chew down their food. I think Illinois is the team here to beat. They're going to run through Arkansas and move on to the championship game. And like I said, we hardly ever see one-on-ones. This is basically all chalk for this most part. And I know y'all are probably thinking this is all chalk, but trust me, in a bracket, you want to take the chalk, especially if you're doing a bracket pool. Why put down money and then take somebody who's like a 20% chance to win? You want to take the chalk, give yourself a chance to win the bracket. Even if some upsets happen, chances are you're still in good position for the bracket if you're taking the chalk. But if you're taking 20 upsets in a 32-game first round, you messed up. Don't do a bracket. Don't if you're taking Oral Roberts over Ohio State, Gonzaga over Norfolk. I heard a guy who took what was it? I had a guy who took Iona over Alabama. Don't do that. Don't trust me. So you want to take all chalk all the way more or less to the final. I guess you could take Oral Roberts over Ohio State. Thinking about it, just because Kyle Young's out, I mean, you might be able to make a case for that. But beyond that, coming back to this, Gonzaga, Illinois, going to be a great match. Going to be a great match. Gonzaga faults in the paint. They do. And Illinois' advantages are in the paint. The question then remains, what about the rest of their games? Well, I think Gonzaga and Illinois are matched up very evenly in the rest of their games. I think it comes down to the paint, and I am going to take Illinois to win it all 75-72. Very close game. Fairly, maybe even less. Maybe it could even be 68-65. It's going to come down to the paint. And I think Kofi Cockburn, again, is the person to watch. He is key to this tournament. He is key to my bracket. I should remove this Azim Rakes and just put in Kofi Rakes because, frankly, that's who I need to rake in the points, rake in the rebounds, rake in everything, rake in the wins, and get to the finals and win the tournament for me. I'm going all in on Kofi Cockburn, and I'm taking Illinois to win it all, 75-72. If you stuck it out this far, thank you. Hopefully it wasn't too tedious for you, and hopefully you learned quite a bit, or at least I helped you with a couple of picks, because I promise you I was about to pull my hair out on a bunch of the picks. That being said, thanks for watching, and I appreciate the support. And let me close out of this. I appreciate the support, and follow me on Twitter at Azim Rakes. That's right there. Or well, I can't do that. Can I do that? I can't do that either. It is right here at Azim Rakes. Yeah, follow that. And maybe I can do some more videos in the future detailing this. Maybe in the second round, I might come out with some upsets for those busted bracket guys. But yeah, thanks again for your support, and let me know what you think. Let me know what your upsets are. I want to hear this. I want to hear these things. So let me know. All right.